Now on our channel we have a wide variety of videos where we talk about the underlying causes for specific digestive symptoms like constipation and diarrhea and burping and bloating and nausea and acid reflux. But in today's video I want to talk about 8 different problems that can actually cause those underlying causes to malfunction in the first place. This is going to be fun.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
Now, if you want to dig deeper into this topic, in the description below this video, we'll put a link to our Understanding Digestive Troubles video where we may go into that in a little more depth. But just to give you an overview and to understand why these problems can create issues for the digestive process, let's just look at how digestion is supposed to work real briefly. So when we eat food, our stomachs should make hydrochloric acid, or HCl, and that's what helps us start to acidify that food so that we can break it down. Now, once the food is acidified, it'll leave the stomach and go into the duodenum, which is the first 10 inches of the small intestine. And that's where the gallbladder will squirt bile down onto this acidic product that left the stomach. So when this acidic product meets this alkaline bile squirting down onto it, it creates this sizzle. And this sizzle of opposite pHs meeting together really helps us bust the food apart and pull all the nutrients out of that food. So you can see that these 2 main sides of digestion are both really important. If you don't have enough stomach acid, you're not going to get the sizzle. And if you don't have the alkaline bile, you're not going to get the sizzle and really bust the food apart and get the nutrients out. That's why we eat the food, so we can access those nutrients. The problem is it's really common for someone not to be making enough stomach acid, so they can't acidify that food properly. And it's also really common today for someone's bile to become too thick and sticky so it won't flow the way that it should. It can't come down from the gallbladder and neutralize those acids and really create that sizzle. So in today's video, I'm going to explain 4 problems that can restrict a person's ability to create that stomach acid, and 4 problems that can cause someone's bile to become too thick and sticky to flow correctly. So first we'll go over the troubles that can make a person not have enough stomach acid to properly acidify their food. And number 1 is using PPIs or antacids. And this is really common. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. There are millions of people using these medications. And some will say, well, I'm using it for my acid reflux. But what we understand is that these medications turn off or neutralize stomach acid. So if you're turning off stomach acid, you don't have the ability to acidify your food properly, which means you can't break it down. When it doesn't get acidified, it breaks down by process of rotting and fermenting. And all that rotting and fermenting creates extra gases and toxins, and it's not going to truly break down the way that it would if it was properly acidified in the stomach. And people say, oh, well, I have too much stomach acid, so I need to take these medications to reduce the level. But the reality is that acid reflux is caused by having not enough stomach acid. It's not caused by too much stomach acid like we're told. And if you don't understand this, we'll put a link in the description below this video for our video on understanding acid reflux. So someone might not have enough stomach acid to trigger that LES valve at the bottom of the esophagus to close properly and keep acid from coming back up. So they take these medications that turn off stomach acid even more. So now they really can't digest their food. We're going to come back to this PPI or antacid use in a minute, but this is a common cause, and a lot of people don't even know that they're actually turning off their digestion when they're using these types of medications. Now, that doesn't mean to stop using this medication if your doctor told you to take it. You may need to work on the underlying cause and then work with your doctor on coming off of that medication. But this is a really common problem. Now, the second most common problem that can restrict a person's ability to acidify their food properly is for them to have a lack of minerals or a lack of resources. So to make hydrochloric acid, the body needs a lot of minerals and resources to be able to make that and acidify the food correctly. The process of digestion takes more resources than just about anything that we do. So the body has to have those resources enabled to be able to create that stomach acid and create that digestion. So to get an idea, maybe you don't have the minerals in the system to make this hydrochloric acid, you can just look at your blood pressure at home with a blood pressure cuff you picked up at a pharmacy for $30 or $40. And if you check your blood pressure at least 2 hours after a meal, but not first thing in the morning before you've eaten, it should be after a meal, And if that systolic number, which is the top number, is below 112, that's a really strong sign that there's not enough minerals in the system for the body to function the way that it wants to function. So if that's the case, you may be able to take steps to lift minerals and help the body get the nutrients that it needs to make that hydrochloric acid. So someone might have low minerals for a wide variety of reasons. Maybe they're avoiding salt because the doctor told their Uncle Bill it was going to kill him, so they think that salt is bad for everybody. But salt contains this chloride ion that we kind of need to make hydrochloric acid. That HCl, we need chloride to do that. So if somebody is running in horror from salt, they're not going to get what they need to be able to make that hydrochloric acid. We recommend somebody using a good sea salt because that gives a wide variety of minerals that the body uses for a lot of functions. Maybe they're not digesting their food enough to pull the minerals out of the food they're eating. Hello? So a lot of people get stuck in this vicious cycle of, well, the body needs minerals to be able to make hydrochloric acid, but the body needs to be making enough hydrochloric acid to really break the food down and pull the minerals out of that food. So now we can kind of start to understand why someone can get stuck with digestive symptoms for months, years, or a lifetime. It can be this vicious cycle of an inability to break it down properly or an inability to pull all the nutrients out of that food. So it's really common to see someone, hey, I'm not using a PPI right now, but I'm still don't seem to be acidifying my food. Well, it's possible that they turned off their digestion enough to stop pulling minerals out of their food, and then maybe they stopped using an acid-reducing medication, but now they don't have enough stomach acid to truly break down their food and pull enough minerals out of the food. And it doesn't have to be a medication that starts this process. There's other things that can happen in life that can restrict stomach acid production. Maybe a person has some kind of food poisoning infection or some type of chronic infection like an H. pylori infection or some other type of bacterial infection in the stomach. And this can be problematic because some bacteria will actually kind of scarf up hydrogen. Like H. pylori is known to kind of scarf up hydrogen. Now the body doesn't have the hydrogen it needs to make hydrochloric acid. I often hear the story about why they started to make PPIs. They developed them to kind of be able to starve H. pylori infections in the stomach by turning off that proton pump inhibitor, and it reduces the ability for the body to make that hydrogen. And now the H. pylori doesn't have stuff that it needs and it'll die off. So that was the purpose of making those PPIs, and then they kind of discovered, oh, wait a minute, it kind of turns off this symptom of acid reflux. You know, it's not actually correcting the problem, but it's turning off this symptom, and then it became this multi-billion-dollar industry. So sometimes there could be an infection that comes in temporarily or a chronic infection that's taking resources away that the body needs to make hydrochloric acid. It can also be problematic because some of the waste product from some of these bacterial infections is very alkaline. So maybe the body's making enough hydrochloric acid, but there's this bacterial overgrowth in the stomach that's creating this alkaline environment, and the alkaline waste from this bacteria is neutralizing the stomach acid that you're making. Now you still don't have the ability to acidify that food properly. If a person is dealing with hypoglycemic type symptoms, this can create a scenario where insulin will stay very low because the insulin is very powerful and it doesn't need to make a lot for the body to be able to process the carbohydrates that we're eating. So if insulin is very low all the time, that can cause some people to pee out too many minerals. Now their mineral levels are going low and the body doesn't have the minerals it needs to make hydrochloric acid. If you think you might be having hypoglycemic type symptoms, then we'll put a link in the description below the video for our video on hypoglycemia. But in any case, if your blood pressure is low, check out our video on how to boost minerals so you can start taking steps that will increase the minerals in the system. And also know that if you're on some medications like some antidepressants and anti-anxiety type medications, some have the ability to make your blood pressure look a little bit higher. So if you look at your blood pressure and it's in a good range like 120/80 or something, but you're on some of these medications, then you may still need to take steps to lift mineral levels to truly be able to digest your food. The medication may just be making it look like your blood pressure is in the right range. So the third common cause is some type of food poisoning or bacterial type infection in the stomach. So what happens is this stomach acid is kind of the barrier to the body. It's like our knight in disgusting armor. So when varmints come in on the food that we eat, this stomach acid is supposed to fry them in an acid bath. But if we don't have enough stomach acid, now they can come in, really set up camp, they can raise their kids, they can have a keg party, it's a good time. So this is kind of another vicious cycle that can be created. If someone doesn't have enough stomach acid, they can get these chronic infections that come back again and again. lot of people see these issues come back again and again because they take care of the infection, but they don't do anything to close the door. They don't turn that stomach acid function back on so that it can wipe out the bad guys as they come in. So a person could have everything going really well, and then maybe they get sick, maybe they get a cold, and a lot of the body's resources are going towards battling this cold, and now they can't make enough stomach acid, so some other infection comes in and sets up camp in the stomach. So some of these digestive issues that can torment a person for decades can come about by a very simple little thing going wrong. So the fourth common reason that someone may not be making enough stomach acid is if they have poor bile flow, right? We're about to talk about different ways that poor bile flow can come about. So since poor bile flow can be the cause of low stomach acid, why don't we move into the things that can cause poor bile flow? And guess what the first one is? Yeah, it's low stomach acid. Because guess what? Stomach acid is what triggers the bile to drop down from the gallbladder onto that acidic product. So if that food is not getting acidified correctly, then the acid product doesn't go into the duodenum, and that doesn't signal the bile to really come down and neutralize those acids. Why would it need to if there's no acids there to be neutralized? So when someone doesn't have enough stomach acid, the gallbladder doesn't get called on, and then that bile kind of sits there. And while the bile is in the gallbladder, it concentrates so that it can be more effective. And if it continues to just sit there and concentrate for a long period of time, it can get too thick and sticky to flow, and now the person's bile is not going to flow correctly. It can even concentrate until it forms into stones, and we get gallstones. So we can start to see why digestive problems are so common. There's a wide variety of issues that can cause either side not to function correctly, and if either side isn't working correctly, it can cause the other side not to work correctly. We really like to see people address both sides of digestion if they're having any type of digestive problems. The second issue that can cause bile to become too thick and sticky to flow correctly is high estrogen levels. So there's a lot of people that are on birth control that really raise estrogen. There's a lot of people on medications that are meant to raise estrogen, like estrogen therapy. But there's also medications that can kind of raise estrogen as a side effect. So if estrogen is going too high, it seems to really thicken up the bile so it won't flow correctly. And even without medications at all, estrogen can go really high if the person is really stressed or if the body is really stressed. So estrogen is a stress hormone, and it will go high when stress is going on. So maybe you need to find ways to simmer down if you're having a lot of stress in your life, or maybe there's something that's stressing out your body. Maybe resources are really low. That can be a big stress on the body. Maybe you have some type of invader or infection going on, and the body is kind of stressing about dealing with this invader. So there's imbalances and such that can create stress in the body, and if you want to dig into that a little bit more, my book Kick Your Fat in the Nuts will walk you through running some simple self-tests at home so you can kind of get an idea of where your body chemistry is and what may be going wrong. And it's available on Amazon, but I'm going to put a link in the description below this video so you can get the whole thing totally for free. And it'll also walk you through figuring out which aspects of digestion are not working correctly, and if so, what steps you can take to improve those. The third common cause for bile not flowing correctly is a low-fat diet. Now in the 80s we wore parachute pants and we ran away from fat because we were scared of fat, and a lot of people are still living that life. We know now that real food dietary fats are not bad for us, but a lot of people, that information won't get to them for 20 or 30 or 40 years. It takes a long time for things to make it to the mainstream. So since bile is this soapy substance that helps us emulsify or break down our dietary fats, if we're not consuming any dietary fats, the body won't squirt as much bile down on there to help emulsify and digest those fats correctly. The bile is needed to digest those fats. So if we're not bringing in enough fats, not as much bile is going to be called on. It's not going to flow as often or as much, and it's going to get a little bit stagnant and sticky as it sits there and concentrates. So we really need to make sure that we're getting enough good dietary fats in our diet. And someone may be saying, well, what if I have lost my gallbladder? What if there is no bile stored in the gallbladder because somebody took the gallbladder out? So this can be a problem, but there's steps you can take to kind of synthesize proper digestion. And we'll put a link in the description below this video for our 6 steps you can take if you've lost your gallbladder. Now the fourth most common cause for bile becoming too thick and sticky is someone eating too many grains and processed foods. It appears that grains and processed foods have the ability to thicken up that bile so it won't flow correctly. So that doesn't mean you can't eat any grains or any processed foods, but just know that these can be part of the problem, and you want to restrict that and try to lean more towards real foods if you're having bile flow issues. And to give you a bonus, there's also an imbalance of our circadian rhythm called a catabolic imbalance, where the body can kind of stay stuck in that daytime state most of the time. And that seems to have the ability to thicken up the bile because it can change where the body's sending a lot of its water. And if you think that that could be a problem for you, we'll give you a link for our Understanding a Catabolic Imbalance video in the description below this video. So you can see that there's a lot of issues that can create trouble for these two main sides of digestion. And if either of those are problematic for you, it can really cause a lot of problems and cause the other side of digestion to malfunction as well. So the book can walk you through figuring that out. And if you hate to read, we also have a totally free digestion course that'll walk you through those same steps. And we'll put the link to that totally free course in the description below. So for now, if you need to understand more about how these troubles can actually cause the symptoms like constipation, diarrhea, and all those other digestive symptoms, jump over and watch our video on understanding digestive troubles. I can't wait to hear about your results.